The Ten of Swords is about hitting rock bottom. After all, it doesn't get much worse than laying in the mud with 10 swords stuck in your back. Watch this video to learn how you can interpret this difficult card when it comes up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we'll be learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's video is about the 10 of Swords. This video will begin with a short description of the card. Next, I'll briefly explain what the card means when it appears in a reading. Then we'll talk about what each element symbolizes and what the card means when it shows up in both the upright and reversed position in a reading. I'll share some examples from my life so you can relate to the card in a real-world situation. And stay tuned until the end and I'll give you several questions to help you connect with the card. I will be using the Rider-Waite Tarot in this video. You'll find the link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I've used in my research. So let's get started. In the Ten of Swords, we see a man laying on the ground with his arms outstretched. He is wearing a brown tunic with a white sleeve. His red robe has been torn off and is draped over the lower part of his body. He has 10 blue and white swords stuck along his back. His face is turned away from us and we can see blood on the ground below his head. He is laying in brown mud. His right hand forms the symbol of a blessing. The water is calm. The sky starts out pitch black. As we move towards the middle of the card, we see gray storm clouds. Above the water, we see yellow. When the Ten of Swords appears in a reading, it means that you've reached the end of your journey and have hit rock bottom. This may be due to your own actions, the actions of someone else, or just bad luck. You feel exhausted, in pain, and defeated. You have reached a painful end to your struggle, and you are ready to give up. You feel like your situation can't get any worse. On a more positive note, this card can signify that a new day is dawning. Your struggle is ending, there is renewed hope, and things are about to get better. This is very much like the message in the Death card that tells us that some kind of metaphorical death must happen in order for transformation to occur. Finally, the Ten of Swords can literally mean that you are experiencing back pain or that you need back surgery. Let's talk about the symbolism in this card. In the Ten of Swords, we see a man laying on the ground with his arms outstretched, with 10 swords stabbed unevenly along his spine. Most books I read described the victim as being dead. However, after reading Pam Richards' explanation in her book Understanding Tarot, I actually believe that he is alive and just paralyzed. More about that in a moment. One of the most interesting parts of this card, for me, is the placement of the 10 swords. If you look on the screen, you'll see that most of the swords cards show the swords are placed precisely and not haphazardly. You can see them lined up evenly and parallel to each other in the 4 and 9 of Swords. This is not the case with the 10 of Swords, as the swords are at different angles and different depths. So why is this? I couldn't find any explanation in my research, so here's my take on the symbolism. If you see it differently, I'd love to have you share your opinion in the comments. The 6 and 8 of Swords show the swords at different heights. In both of these cards, the swords represent problems that you could escape from, but are choosing not to. In the 6 of Swords, she is not facing her issues and is bringing them with her to the next destination. In the 8 of Swords, she is in a prison of her own making. So my guess is that the 10 swords in the victim's back represent self-imposed wounds caused by painful thoughts that got him to the point of near death, rather than having someone literally stabbing him in the back 10 times. Like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. For the symbolism of the card, I'm going to draw heavily on Pam Richards' book called Understanding Tarot. She believes that the attack happened in the middle of the night when the victim could not have seen it coming. The brown tunic covers his heart, which shows that he is grounded and very aware of what happens. She also says that the brown of his tunic represents someone who is practical and sincere, which shows that bad things happen to good people. The brown mud would represent the same thing. His red robe has been torn and is now draped over the lower half of his body. We see blood flowing from the top half of his body. Red symbolizes love and also vitality. Pam Richards is one of the few authors who believes that the victim is still alive and being forced to endure the torture of this situation. I think there is a lot of merit to her beliefs, and I'm going to cover her thoughts here. According to Pam, the torn red robe means that he's aware of his lost ambition and his lack of ability to escape the situation. Red is the color of passion and might mean that he was too reckless. The robe shows a loss of status, identity, and authority, which indicates that something he loved or desired was snatched away from him. The swords piercing the length of his spine would leave him paralyzed and defeated. She notes that the swords are not on the top of his head or crown, which means that he is fully aware of what is going on. The sword in his ear represents hearing those things that destroy. The rest of the swords down his spine paralyze him, and he's forced to watch the rising sun. He cannot deny his pain. The white sleeve shows purity, which can mean that he's learned from this situation. Most of the sword is a cold blue color, which represents that it is about cold, unyielding facts. It's pretty hard to deny what has happened. Like the victim's white sleeve, the white portion of the sword indicates that the victim has gained some insight from his experience. So to summarize, we have the paralyzed, almost dead victim laying in the mud and looking at the scene in front of him. The fingers on his right hand show the gesture of the blessing that we saw in the Hierophant, which is card number 5 in the Major Arcana. Note that both figures are wearing very similar clothing with the white sleeve and red robe, although the dead body has a brown tunic. The hand gesture might indicate that he's accepted his fate, especially as it is his right hand, which is the hand that represents logic. It might also symbolize that, if he has passed away, he knows that he will be united with spirit. Rachel Pollack, in her book The New Tarot, Master the Meaning of the Cards, has a different view. She suggests that his hand gesture might signify an overthrow of religious authority or orthodoxy so that people can find their own way. She also believes that the figure might be participating in a meditation practice known as killing the ego. The water is calm, which means that he has no emotional energy left to fight. He can see the mountains in the distance, which indicate obstacles that he'll need to face in the future. The sky is interesting. It starts out pitch black. As we move toward the middle of the card, we see gray storm clouds that indicate that a thunderstorm is coming or has just passed. The contrast between the dark clouds and yellow sunshine shows that there are problems that need to be addressed. However, we see a yellow sunrise, which indicates that better days are coming. When the Ten of Swords appears in an upright position in a reading, it could symbolize an ending of some kind. It could mean that something terrible has happened to you, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, that you are feeling attacked, or that you've been betrayed, stabbed in the back, or had someone abruptly end a relationship. It could mean that you feel pinned down or trapped, you don't see any way out of your situation, that you feel humiliated. It might mean that you need to reevaluate what is happening in your life because the current trajectory isn't good. As I was writing this script, I got an email saying that my cousin, who is in his mid-60s, just had his second heart attack and is not doing well. He's somebody who enjoys food and alcohol. His current trajectory isn't good, and his wife is already stressing about the changes he'll need to make to his diet going forward. This card could mean that things aren't as bad as you think, or that the worst are over, that you are indulging in self-pity or are playing the victim, that you are carrying around old wounds, that you are exhausted, burnt out, or ready to collapse, that you are ready to move on to something new after a great deal of suffering, or that you are exaggerating your suffering. In my house, we'd refer to this as being a bit of a drama queen. And finally, the Ten of Swords could relate to martyrdom, which is suffering due to your religious or political beliefs. Here's an example from my life about terrible things happening to you. When my son was in college, his roommate's family went through several tragedies. His parents were going through a divorce after 30-plus years of marriage. 3 of his 4 grandparents died, and they had to euthanize the family dog. This all happened within less than 3 months. It was such a terrible time for them that it was almost comical as we wondered what would happen next. When the Ten of Swords appears in a reversed position, it can have a similar meaning to the card in the upright position, but with added emotions. For example, I just gave the example of my cousin who just had a heart attack and the fact that his recovery will require some major lifestyle changes. It's already a bad situation, but it would be worse if he blamed his wife because she wasn't monitoring his alcohol content or got angry at his golf buddies for inviting him out to lunch after their weekend games. The Ten of Swords reversed can mean that the worst is behind you, that you are recovering from an illness. As you can see, the swords are literally falling out of his body. However, it may be a long recovery. It can mean that sunny skies are ahead. In the reversed position, we see a blue sky over a sunny horizon. It can mean that you are on pins and needles, that you are refusing to let go of something or hanging on to the past, and finally, that you are forgiving somebody. Here's an example of the reverse Ten of Swords from my life about someone who was hanging on to an illness. I was friends with this lady for about 30 years, and we'd gone through a lot together. She had many physical issues, made worse by the fact she was extremely overweight, which put a lot of strain on her heart and lungs. One day I went to visit her in the hospital where she was being treated for heart issues. I expected her to be very weak and laying with her head on the pillow. Nope. She was sitting up and acting like a queen on her throne. She was ordering the nurses around and thriving with all the attention. I had not seen her look that good in years. I was appalled at how she was acting and realized that she preferred the attention to getting well. I lost all respect for her and could no longer muster any sympathy for her situation. Sadly, that day was the end of our friendship. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Ten of Swords. Number 1, is there a time in your life when you hit rock bottom? What helped turn things around? Number 2, are you heading toward burnout or exhaustion? What steps can you take to regain your strength? Number 3, are you clinging to the past? What kind of pain are you hanging on to? Number 4, is it time to forgive someone? Number 5, do you have back problems that need attention? And finally, number 6, are you ready for a new start? So I hope this video has given you a good look into the Ten of Swords. Please join me for the next video, which is the Page of Swords.